Hey, welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hartman. We are in the middle of our conference previews for college basketball, kicking off November 3rd. And today we're going to take a look at the Southeast Conference. This was undoubtedly the best and deepest conference in college basketball season last year. They recorded 14 teams out of 16 to the NCAA tournament, including national champion Florida. According to KenPom, the SEC begins this season as the toughest conference again. No doubts about that. They have 10 teams in the top 31 according to KenPom, and they actually have a staggering 14 teams in the top 43 according to Bart Torvik. Florida, as I said, reigning national champion. This league is undoubtedly going to be tough top to bottom. Will they get 14 teams again? Stick around to find out, and we'll talk more about who the championship contenders are, who's in that middle group, and we'll talk a little bit about tourney bids towards the end of today's show. Thanks for listening. This is the Splash City Basketball Podcast. All right, so we're doing our 3-and-D segments. We are doing 3 storylines and a dark horse. Today's storyline number 1. In a multi-team race, who are those championship contenders in the SEC? Well, you got to start off with the reigning national champion, Florida Gators. They are number 1 in the preseason coaches poll in the SEC, poised for another deep run. Although they have their fierce front court fully intact with Alex Condon, Thomas Huff, they are going to be without their top 4 guards from last season. Walter Clayton Jr. was unstoppable late in games, steady presence, big shot maker, shot creator. Will Richards also gone. So the main challenge for Coach Todd Golden is integrating some new guards into the mix here. And surprise, surprise, he went out and did that via the transfer portal. So you got Princeton transfer Xavier Lee and former Razorback inter-conference transfer Boogie Fland. Now, Boogie Fland was hurt a little bit last year, missed some time for John Calipari in Arkansas. So Florida, if Boogie Fland is healthy, will be absolutely at the top of their game. It'll help them get out in transition and make their defense even better. But a lot of predictions are based on healthy teams, so we'll see if Boogie Fland can stay healthy this year. Another interesting thing about Florida is you're going to see a lot of size for the Florida Gators. I kind of liken them to what the Houston Rockets are doing in the NBA, where you've got some real size 3 through 5, length at the guard position. They will be able to punish people on the glass and really create some mismatches, assuming the ball handling and shooting is enough. So we'll find out real early. Opening night, November 3rd, Florida plays against Arizona, another team with lots of size, and season opening in Las Vegas. Kentucky, obviously, another big-time brand, loaded with talent. Second year under Mark Pope, the Wildcats added, of course, some transfers, the number 6 freshman class in the country. The other day on Instagram, I posted about Jasper Johnson. I had some takeaways from their exhibition game against Purdue, in which Kentucky kind of dominated Purdue. I know it's exhibition. Braden Smith didn't play as much as he normally would, but I really liked what Jasper Johnson, freshman guard, can do for Mark Pope's Wildcats. Couple other things about Kentucky that I think everyone needs to know. Guard Otega Owe is the preseason player of the year. So they have a physical, defensive-minded wing player who can get to the rack, get to the rim. I really think Kentucky is as balanced of a team as there is in the SEC. They have size, they have shooting, they have quickness. They have Arizona State transfer coming in to help on the inside, along with 7-foot freshman Malachi Morena. Those guys are going to be able to protect the rim, have lob threats. So I just don't see a lot of weaknesses with Kentucky, and I wouldn't be shocked if they unseat Florida this year. One thing of note I want to call out is I know rankings can be very difficult when nobody's played a game. But KenPom has Kentucky rated at number 4, and Bart Torvik has them at 14. Torvik is typically more of a, looking ahead, predictions. KenPom's more of a analytics base, so it needs some data. So it'll be interesting to see That's a pretty big swing for a top 5 team. I would say maybe one rung below, but not far behind at all, is a couple of powerhouse programs in the last few years. Arkansas's John Calipari is leaning heavily on a couple of really good guards. They have junior DJ Wagner and freshman guard this year, Darius Akoff, who is highly touted. Immediate threats to score. They're going to be able to shoot it. They can play at all 3 levels, really. And, Arkansas, they upset St. John's in the second round last year, lost to Texas Tech by 2 in overtime. So that Arkansas team was really clicking at the end of the season. I think early in the year, there was a lot of, oh man, this is not going well for Cal. This is going to be a tough year. Arkansas is a tough place. The fans aren't gonna be happy. And then come January, February, March, they were playing as well as anybody. And I expect Calipari to really get that team going from the start this year. Carter Knox, Trevon Brazile, super important down the stretch. And Brazile actually shot 36% from 3. So even though he's a big guy who can protect the basket, he's kind of your stretch 4. Arkansas added Florida State Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle from South Carolina for more size. I think the biggest question I have with Arkansas is, are they going to struggle out of the gates this year? Are they going to, kind of have to find their footing for the first few months of the year? Or will they be the team that whooped Kentucky at Rupp Arena and, a run in the March Madness? So they could be, I think they could be challenging for the SEC crown this year. And I think I wouldn't be shocked to see them as a 2 or 3 seed in March. They recently whipped Cincinnati and Memphis in exhibition games. Again, exhibition games, but they won by 20 plus in each of those. They do have true road games at Michigan State. They play Louisville, Duke, Texas Tech, all before SEC plays. So I love that Calipari and Arkansas are not backing down and getting after it early season. Alabama, Coach Nate Oates, they've been on fire the last few years. They were at a Final Four. Last year they were in the Elite Eight. I do think the loss of Mark Sears and Cliff O'Murray and Grant Nelson are going to be a lot to bear. They have some stud guards coming back. If you watch Alabama play in the last couple of years, they're high pace, high three-point volume. They're running and gunning. Even their bigs can shoot. So I'm a little concerned that there might be a small step back for Alabama. I love Nate Oates as a coach, but Mark Sears did so much for them, and Grant Nelson was really a nice piece, a glue player. Could stretch the floor with his three-point shooting. He was 6'10", 6'11". So I know there's more of those guys coming in, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Alabama just take maybe a small step back. But they're still going to be very tough, and they're going to have a strong season. The other team similar to Alabama is Tennessee. They lose Zakai Ziegler, they lose Meshack, they lose Chaz Lanier. And so there's a lot of guys leaving, and I think that's one of the themes actually of the SEC this year, is that there's just, I think, like 26 of the top 30 scorers are gone or something like that. So there's going to be a little turnover here. What did Tennessee do in the transfer portal? They went out and got Jacoby Gillespie from Maryland. They still have Felix Akpara to protect the rim. Ken Pom actually has Tennessee third, and Torvik has them second in the SEC to start the season. So I think Tennessee could be a little sneaky. Not to say that nobody's, their preseason coaches poll, they're ranked 5th, but Tennessee might be one of those, like maybe you switch Alabama, Tennessee in those rankings and by the end of the year. But a lot of turnover for some of these teams who have had tremendous seasons the last couple of years. So those are the teams I kind of put at the top of the SEC. Storyline number 2 is going to be some of the new coaches. This is, turnover in college basketball it's players, it's coaches, but some interesting ones in the SEC. So Auburn, Bruce Pearl retires, best coach in Auburn history, shows up and they're contending. They're going to the Final Four twice, I think. And last year's team, Janai Broom, Chad Baker Mazzara's gone. Dylan Cardwell was one of the best interior defenders in the country, and he's gone. So again, a lot to replace for Auburn. Bruce Pearl's son, Stephen Pearl, actually takes over, and they were picked 6th in the coaches poll coming into the year. Now they're going to be led by Tahad Pettiford, young guard, sophomore guard. Last year, kind of burst onto the scene, had some huge games for them. And then they're going to bring in UCF transfer Keyshawn Hill. So those two will man the backcourt, and that should be enough to keep them kind of in that second group, I would say, in the SEC. And it's just not an easy league. So they, again, lost a lot. And as a first-year coach, as you're replacing some legendary coaches, that can always be tough. So I'm curious to see how Stephen Pearl handles it. He's never been a head coach before. Typically, I would say that's tough to come in and handle, but his dad had a plan here. Not a ton lost into the transfer portal. They kept Pettiford, so Auburn should be solid again this year. The Texas Longhorns also let go of Rodney Terry, and they bring in former Arizona coach, former Xavier coach Sean Miller. Proven track record. He wins where he goes. Texas has kind of been a tough gig, I would say, for some coaches, with interesting expectations, mixed tourney results. They had a high-scoring freshman last year, gone to the NBA, and they come back with some returning guards. They have some bigs they got in the transfer portal. They're picked to finish 10th. I would say they're going to probably be in that bubble conversation this year come March. One thing for local fans in the Twin Cities is that Wyzeta's Cam Heide, who was at Purdue, had left Purdue, is now at Texas. So he goes from a team, poised to have a tournament run, Final Four aspirations, national title aspirations, to Texas, where they could be, a bubble team. So he's got more to his game, I think, than he maybe showed at Purdue, and that could be why he went to Texas. He was mostly primarily a 3-and-D player, athletic, bigger kid, 6'7", 6'8", and he'll be at Texas. So keep an eye on him. And then the last coaching change in the SEC was at Texas A&M, where Buzz Williams is gone now to Maryland. He is replaced by Bucky McMillan. And so we're going to expect a big change in style of play at Texas A&M. Texas A&M, Buzz Williams teams, I wouldn't say like a super slow pace, but a slower pace, more emphasis on defense and rebounding. Under Bucky McMillan, you're going to see high tempo, full court pressure, lots of threes, maybe even a little almost Alabama-like, which will make them interesting to watch. Pop Isaacs transfers from Creighton, and he's kind of the key addition for Texas A&M. Storyline number 3, NCAA bids. So last year, like I said, SEC had a record 14 teams in the tournament. Do we expect to see that again? Out of 16-team league, to get 14 teams is kind of crazy. It's just one of the reasons why I'm not supportive of the NCAA tournament expansion, because I feel like if you finish at 14th in your conference, you are not one of the best teams in the country, so you shouldn't get an opportunity to win a national title. However, that's the world we live in right now. So the rest of the teams to keep an eye on here. Ole Miss last year made the tournament. It's hard to bet against Chris Beard. He's done amazing things at Texas Tech, Texas, and now Ole Miss. But the real key to this team is the road-tripping A.J. Storr. Storr started at Rutgers, went to Wisconsin and kind of blew up, had a great season, transfers to Kansas, kind of falls off the face of the earth. And so we'll see whether we get the Badger version of A.J. Storr or if we'll get the Kansas version of A.J. Storr. And that'll really be the key to Ole Miss. Bart Torvik has Ole Miss at 43rd, which is second to last, or 14th, in the SEC. But 43rd, and Torvik might get you in the tournament. So we'll see if that holds true. Another team we haven't talked about yet is Missouri. I love Dennis Gates as a coach. I wanted him when he left, I think it was Cleveland State. I was actually hoping the Gophers would go after him, and maybe they did, but Missouri is probably a better job, so that's where he ended up. And funny thing, at that time, I was also interested in Steve Forbes, who was at East Tennessee State. He goes to Wake Forest. Pretty mixed results at Wake Forest so far for Forbes. Instead, the Gophers hire Ben Johnson, and we all know how that goes. Apparently, I'm not the only one that is high on Mizzou, as they're ranked 7th in the SEC preseason coaches poll. They made a huge jump last year. They were winless in 23-24. Last year they go 10-8 in the SEC before they got upset by Drake. So I think Missouri's on the right trajectory, and like I said, I like Dennis Gates as coach. Former Duke forward Mark Mitchell has found a home in Columbia and is one of the key pieces for the Tigers. A couple more teams that are in the mix, I would say, for probably bubble teams with Mississippi State. Chris Jans does a great job with that team. They have Hubbard back, so they should be pretty solid. And then Oklahoma. So Oklahoma was picked 12th in the coaches poll. Ken Pom has them at 15th in the SEC, so that's kind of, I don't know, Porter Moser, he's kind of had some up and down. They made the tournament last year. I could see them falling off a little this year and missing the tournament. And then Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt picked 11th. Great season last year. Ken Pom has them at number 4. So I would watch out for Vanderbilt again this year as another team maybe going to make a little bit of a jump ahead of predictions. Again, that's going to be a team worth watching on the bubble as we get into late February. Like I said this earlier, 26 of last season's top 30 scorers in the SEC are gone. So 14 teams last year. They won the national title. They had numerous teams in the Elite Eight. I think they had 4 teams in the Elite Eight. I don't think they're going to quite get 14 this year, but I can definitely see 10 to 12 from this SEC, depending on how things go in November, December in the non-con. I have Florida, Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, almost locks in for the tournament. Then you got Auburn, Missouri, Ole Miss, I think will get in. And then between Texas, A&M, Oklahoma, Vandy, and Mississippi State, I think 2 or 3 of those will get in as well. So it's going to be a fun season. This is a great league. Again, like a lot of these leagues, the night in, night out competition is outstanding. So those are my 3 storylines for the SEC. My dark horse pick this year, if I had to pick one, it's quasi upset, I guess, it would be the Arkansas Razorbacks to win the SEC. Never been a huge fan of John Calipari, but it's hard to discount his efforts, his coaching, his recruiting. So they, like I said, last year, they got off to a super slow start. They really hit their stride once they got into January, February, March. And, they pushed everybody. They beat St. John's in the tournament in an epic game between Pitino and Calipari. And one of the Calipari's, I think, great skills was during the one and done era, it was getting his teams to come together and gel quickly, getting them to buy in, getting them to accept roles. And I think in this era of transfers, that's also a key thing. So I talked about how they just smoked Cincinnati and Memphis already in exhibition. Their backcourt is loaded. They got DJ Wagner Jr. They have a highly touted freshman in Darius Acuff. Calipari's one thing about his teams, his best teams have great guards. You think of Quickly and Maxey and the Harrison twins, Derrick Rose, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker. I mean, when they're good, John Wall, when they are good, he's got elite guards, and that would probably be most teams, I guess. But I think Wagner and Acuff are going to be that. Their ceiling is super high. I do like that they have some guys returning like Knox and Brazil. This is maybe going to be a little bit of a surprise, but I could definitely see Arkansas being right there with Florida and Kentucky at the top of the SEC this year. I think they have the depth. I think they have the shooting and the ball handling. I think they have the size and rim protection. So if I'm going to pick one dark horse in the SEC, it's going to be Arkansas. All right, so that does it for my SEC preview. We got the 3 storylines and the dark horse completed. This is going to be a really fun league to watch. National title aspirations for multiple teams in this league. And it's, again, probably going to be the best conference in America. So make sure you check out those SEC games starting November 3rd. Thanks again for listening. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.
Back in that bag again. Whoa.